Welcome to episode 4 of Voices and Stories, our summer series. If you've missed an episode, make sure to take the time after this episode to catch back up. We're releasing new episodes Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Sundays at 10 a.m., and both of those are premieres. So what that means is you can watch them live alongside other people when they're released at those times. We're excited that during this series of Voices and Stories, we get to hear from different voices across our region, across our church. Today we're going to head to Kelowna, BC to hear from Noel Nissan. Let's head there now. Hello, my name is Noel Nissan. I'm part of the C3 family and I live in Kelowna, British Columbia with my wife and 2 children. And today I'd like to take you through a little walk through something that God has been speaking to my heart. And this is on the idea of obedience and how obedience brings blessing and protection. I know that most of us don't like to be told what to do. I know I don't, for sure. I was one of those kids when I was younger that when somebody said, oh, you gotta do this or you can't do that, I was always like, don't tell me to do that. And I wanted to do the exact opposite of what they told me. And so that's how I kind of approach life sometimes. But I want to ask this sort of question for you. Have you ever been in that situation where you were facing a decision or something like that, and you just didn't really know what to do? But the thing is you kind of make a guess at what you want to do, but you don't necessarily take the time to ask God what He would want you to do. I'm sure we've all been in that situation. And it can be kind of this confusing time. And if we would take a little bit of time to ask God about things, we might find that things are a little bit better for ourselves. Did you ever do something where you knew that it wasn't quite what you were supposed to do and then immediately suffered the consequences of doing that thing? Well, this is the kind of the concept that I want to break down today. And this is, we're going to start off with a couple of quick little scriptures here. The first one is 1 Samuel 15, verse 22. And in this is where King Saul has been told by God to go out and wipe out this other nation. And instead of wiping them out completely, he brings home all of these livestock and the king of that country, whom God expressly said, yeah, don't do that. And so Samuel, the prophet Samuel, comes along and he sees that Saul has done this. And Saul starts making excuses, and he says, oh, I wanted to have, these livestock so that we could sacrifice to God and stuff like that. And Samuel says these words. He says, obedience is better than sacrifice. Now, if you fast forward a couple thousand years, Jesus is talking to his disciples. And in the book of John, chapter 14, verse 23, Jesus says to his disciples, anyone who loves me will obey my teachings or obey my commands, depending on the version that you have. When I was quite young, there was some prophecy over my life that I was going to be some sort of a minister, and everybody took that as I was going to be a pastor, that I was going to be preaching or maybe be an evangelist or something like that. But those things didn't really sit well with my heart, and so I kind of didn't really go down that path at first. I kind of rejected it because it didn't identify with me. It didn't speak to me in any way. But over time, as I went through my life and as I started seeking God on my own a little bit more and asking Him what He wanted, He started to reveal to me that He wanted me to be a teacher. He wanted me to teach people. And specifically, He wanted me to teach people about growing in their relationship with God, growing in being a Christian, and being able to accomplish the things that God is asking them to do. Up until the last few years, He had put some things on my heart, and I always knew that I wanted to do video production, things that would teach people how to approach God. So I never really kind of got anywhere with that. I did things, but I kind of have a few false starts. I wasn't sure. It kind of made things difficult. So fast forward to 2019, and in 2019, I was seeking God right at the beginning of the year, and He told me, He very clearly spoke to my heart and said, I want you to fast once a month, every month for the year 2019. And so all gung-ho, I thought, sure, great, I'll do that. Started doing that. I did it for the first 3 months, I think, and then in April I completely forgot about it, and then I didn't finish it for the rest of the year. And I tell you, by the end of the year, my year wasn't going very well. I don't know if you remember, in 2019 there was a ton of memes on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter about how that 2019 was a terrible year. That was my year. They were speaking to me. But at the end of 2019, I'm going, okay, God, what's going on? Why aren't things working out for me? And he reminds me of this thing that he'd asked me to do, to fast every month through 2019. So I said, all right, God, I will do this all the way through 2020. And I did that. I went every month. I fasted one day, full food fast, just fasting, seeking God, getting alone in my room, praying about whatever he put on my heart to pray about. Just do that. At the end of the year, well, throughout the year, he started speaking to me about these videos that I had mentioned that I wanted to start doing, and he started giving me, he actually gave me a list of 25 different videos to do, and he gave me the subjects and what he wanted me to share and how he wanted me to go about that. So 2020 finished, and in the beginning of 2021 I started producing these videos, and I started putting them on my YouTube channel, just doing them, and they get released every Sunday at 5 o'clock in the evening, and I just put these things every second Sunday. And what's interesting to me is that they don't get a lot of views. And I had to come to this point where I thought, okay, Lord, I don't care if I have 500,000 people liking these videos or I have 5 people liking these videos. The point isn't to get followers. The point is just to be obedient to what you're telling me to do. So, been doing that fairly consistently throughout this first few months of the year. And so, a few weeks ago, I had one of those days where, I'll call it a breakdown day. It's one of those days where everything breaks, like nothing's working. And it's just, the whole day is like this. There's a problem with the computer. Our brakes on our car are having these troubles. And we got to the point that day where anywhere we drove, the brakes just sounded like they were gonna fall apart. They sounded horrible. And so I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna get down, I'm gonna fix these brakes myself. I bought myself brake pads and I pull the wheel off, and I'm starting to try to pull these things apart, and the bolts holding the brakes together are stuck. They are so stuck that I actually broke one of my wrenches. It was just, I could not get this thing off. 2 hours I tried. 2 hours I tried to get this thing off. It didn't work. So finally I thought, I'm not gonna be able to do this. So I got up and I walk in the house to tell my wife that it's not gonna work, and she, as I'm walking in, she's walking down the stairs to tell me that the dishwasher just broke and we can't close the dishwasher now. And so I walk upstairs to have a look at it, and I can't figure out what's going on. I'm thinking to myself, ugh. So we have this moment, and you've probably had this moment too, where there's that moment of despair, that moment of like, what are we gonna do? This is freaking us out. We don't know what to do. This is gonna cost us a whole bunch of money. And we're looking at each other, my wife and I are looking at each other, and we're starting down that road of despair. And and there's this moment where it just dawns on us, and we just started to speak the opposite of that. We went to each other and we said, no, we're trying to be obedient to God. And we reminded each other that obedience brings blessing and protection, and it works out in our favor. And so we said, no, we're not gonna let this get us down. We're not gonna let this ruin our day. We're not gonna let this ruin anything. He's gonna take care of it. He knows, he cares about our dishwasher. He cares about our brakes. He cares about all of it. He's gonna make a way. Even if we have to spend the money on fixing these things, he's gonna make a way. The next day, I was looking at the dishwasher, and I had a picture in my head. The Lord just showed me exactly what was wrong. I grabbed my screwdriver, pulled the part out of the dishwasher that was faulty, put it back into place, put it back together, dishwasher worked fine. And I saw it immediately. It was just in my head. I could see exactly what I needed to do. A couple of days after that, I thought, I'm gonna try these brakes again. I'm gonna just get down, see if I can make this work. I had pulled out the WD-40, bought some other stuff that was even better, and sprayed these things down. I still couldn't get them off, but while I'm working on it, my neighbor comes along and he looks at it and he goes, oh, I got the perfect tool for that, and brings over a tool for me, and I was able to get my brakes off. And it was just like those things where you leave it to God to do what you need to do, and he brings the right person at the right moment, he brings the right idea at the right moment, and it worked out just fine. But I mentioned that not just the blessing side of obedience, but I also mentioned the protection side. I want to share a couple of quick stories about protection as well that are really interesting, that have happened recently to us. So a few weeks ago, my wife and I went on a motorcycle ride with some friends of ours, and we on our way back into town. It was getting late. It was about 9 o'clock, and but we have the communicators in our helmets so we can talk to each other. And so my wife is telling me, after we've left our friends at their house, my wife's telling me, she's like, "Oh, we got to stop by the grocery store. Once we get home, I'll just jump in the car and I'll head to the grocery store and grab some stuff for the kids." And I said to her, "Well, why don't we just go there now? Because we're on the bike. No point in getting home, getting changed, and all that stuff. We'll just go there now." So we just went to the grocery store on the bike. And when we got there, I parked and I realized, oh, we only have one mask between us. So which of us is going to get to go in and buy this stuff? So she says, "You go ahead and go in." And so I get off the bike and I walk into the store. And it took me a few minutes to find what I was looking for. And I couldn't, because I'm not always familiar with where everything is in the store. I finish paying and I walk out there, and as I'm walking out the doors toward where my motorcycle is, I can see there's some people gathered around my motorcycle, and my wife is on the back, and there's at least 2 other people there, and there's a staff member from the store, and then there's another guy. And as I'm looking at him, at first I thought, oh, they're just all admiring the bike because I have a nice bike, I think, anyway. And then I realized this guy is holding a baseball bat and he's swinging this thing around, yelling at my wife and yelling at this store member, swinging this, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So I run towards the motorcycle, and I get there, and this guy is swearing and screaming at us, and he's screaming at the employee, and he's yelling about how that he lives across the street and he hears loud motorcycles all the time, and he's sick of it, and he's just like losing his mind. And the staff member's telling him, "Hey, I'm going to call the cops on you." And the guy says, "Yeah, go ahead and call the cops, and they're going to give this guy a ticket for his loud motorcycle," and the whole bit. And it's just this very tense situation. And I'm defending. I'm going, "What's going on? What, are you going to hit me with this baseball bat?" And it's very, very tense. And so in this moment, it was very, very tense. We have this moment where this guy looks at me, and then all of a sudden he just turns around and starts walking away. And he walks a few steps and he turns around, looks at me again, and he swears about something and yells a bit more, and then he walks a few more steps, and then he turns around and swears and yells, and then keeps going, and finally goes around the corner. And the staff member who would call the police, he goes running after this guy, and a few minutes later, we're sitting there for a few minutes, we're kind of shaking because we're thinking, well, this just happened. And so we're shaking, we're thinking, okay, we'll wait a few minutes and then we'll head home. Well, the police show up, and the police officer tells us that, oh, we know who this guy is, and he's he calls us every day about motorcycles, but we're gonna go have a chat with him because walking out with a baseball bat is definitely not something you should do. So we get home, and I'm thinking about this afterwards, and of course you have those things in your head that go, here's what I should have said, here's what I should have done, all this stuff. Well, I'm thinking about all that. It drops in my heart what this guy was looking like and what happened when he walked away. He looked at me with this look of almost, I don't know, confusion or something, and he turned around and walked away. And the Lord showed me that this was his protection over us. Because what I saw in my head was this guy, he heard this motorcycle, and he got so angry he decided he was going to do something about it. So he went to his closet or wherever he stores his baseball bat, pulled out his baseball bat, and marched out of his condo building with this baseball bat across the street, ready to do something. And yet the Lord wouldn't let that happen, because and the Lord told me, it was at that time, he said, because you've been obedient, I'm going to protect you. This last weekend we went to Vancouver, and we're on Canada Day driving from North Vancouver back to Burnaby to our hotel. It's about 5 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess. And as we're pulling onto Highway 1 to go down the highway, my brakes that I had put in, my rear left brakes seize up, and they are grinding something harsh. The whole car is shuddering. This is not a good situation. I pull off the turnpike, or I pull off the road and onto the turnpike, and I go, okay, I gotta find somewhere. So I pull off right off the road, and I start looking at it. I start pumping the brakes. I go outside and I tap on the brakes as much as I can, try to make them work. So I start looking on my phone, looking for a mechanic around. And this is 5 o'clock on Canada Day. There's no one open. Every shop says closed, 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 closed. And I find one place that is literally a 4-minute drive from where we're at that says open 24 hours. They were wrong. They close at 5 as well. But we head straight there, and the guy is there, and he says, yeah, I can take a look at your brakes. Again, God's protection. He took care of our brakes, took care of us, made sure that we didn't have a major problem and crash somewhere that we weren't going to be able to get help. And so he was able to figure out what the issue was with that particular brake. I put things in not quite the right way, and it all worked out in the long run. Now, to close off, I want to give you a little story from someone in the Bible who had this exact same sort of thing. Actually, someone that you know very well. If you've read any part of the New Testament, you definitely know this person's writings. Not too many people realize this, though, that the Apostle Paul, when God called him originally, he didn't do what God told him to do right off the bat. We'll take a look in here. In Acts chapter 9, verse 15, Paul has had his little experience where he fell off the donkey. He's blind now because he saw Jesus, and he's sitting in this house waiting for someone to come along. And God goes to this guy named Ananias, and he says, Ananias, I want you to go talk to Paul. And Ananias says, hold on, this guy, he's been pretty bad to us. I don't know if I want to go to this guy. And God says to Ananias in this moment, he says, go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles, so non-Jews. Now, verse 20, like 5 verses later, it says that as soon as Paul was ready, he immediately began preaching about Jesus in the Jewish synagogues. He didn't go to the Gentiles, he went to the Jews. He went straight to the Jews. And then in verse 29, just a few verses after that, it says that the Greek-speaking Jews tried to murder him. And if you take a look all the way throughout, the first 10 years after he's called, he does not go to the Gentiles. And during that time, he was arrested, he was beaten, there was all kinds of attempted murders on him. He was in trouble most of the time. But 10 years later, he starts going to the Gentiles. And because he's going to the Gentiles, now all of a sudden God's protection is all over him. They have a shipwreck, and no one on the ship is hurt in any way. He gets bit by a snake, doesn't get hurt. Nothing. In fact, to the point where they start thinking he's a god. Over and over and over again, after he started doing what God had asked him to do in the first place, God's protection is there for him all the way through for the rest of his natural life. Interestingly enough, when he gets arrested, and he's now going to be in prison for the rest of his natural life, it's because he actually went back to the Jews. So this is the thing that I want to leave you with here. Have you been doing what God asked you to do? What is the last thing he told you? If you're finding that things aren't working out for you, you're having some difficulties, have you done what he's asked you to do? Maybe that's to forgive somebody. Maybe that's to actually go out on the street and preach to people. Maybe that's to go to a different country. Whatever it is, have you been actively pursuing how to do that? And if not, I highly recommend starting that, because his blessing and his protection will be there for you.
place I would rather be. Here in your love, here in your soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. 'Cause I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. 'Cause I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Want more of you, God.
That has been Voices and Stories. We're excited as a church this summer to gather together. Church was always designed to be family, not just friends. And in this season, we want to catch back up. It's sort of like family dinner or family reunion. Now, gatherings in this season don't take place in a church building. They don't take place in a rented facility. But gatherings in this season take place wherever you are with whomever you can be a part of. So what we're asking for you is to take the responsibility to plan and host a gathering. All you need to do to host a gathering is set the time on the bi-weekly Sunday that we're running them and register and invite others. So what you can do is you head to c3church.ca, you register your gathering so we have the details of your gathering. On the same form where you register your gathering, we also have a list of resources that you can ask for so that we can help make your gathering successful. What we want to do as a church in this season is we want to empower you individually to reach out to people, and we want to equip you and resource you to make it as successful as possible. Maybe you live in an apartment and you want to do a beach gathering. Maybe we've got some barbecues that we can lend you. Maybe you're having something in your backyard and you need some folding tables. We've got something for you. Maybe you just want a bouncy castle, because who doesn't want a bouncy castle at their gathering? We've got that for you too. Free of charge, just things that we have to resource you for our gatherings. If you did not receive a text in the last 24 hours letting you know about gatherings taking place, then this is your reminder to text your name to 778-760-3800. Again, that's just your name to 778-760-3800. If you text your name there, we're sending a text out on Gathering Sunday to inform you of the gatherings taking place, and you can text back your city name so we can let you know where the nearest gathering is, based on the information that's been submitted on our registration form. This is just a great opportunity for us to catch up, hear stories, reconnect, newly connect into the community, those of you who have been a part of the community over this last year and a half, and to just spend time together. On July 17th, we are hosting a wine tour. If you want to be a part of that, doesn't matter where you are in our region, we are hosting that for everyone in our church, or anyone who wants to be a part of that in our church. All you have to do is head to c3church.ca and register so we have your information to let you know about it. In August, we're going to be having a golf day. Same thing, register at c3church.ca. And in August, we're also going to be having a worship and prayer event. You can register your interest on the website today, c3church.ca. If you're watching this, we'd love if you take the moment to hit like on the video, to subscribe to the page so you don't miss an episode. If you've already missed an episode, why don't you take the 20 minutes to watch a second episode after this is complete? And if you've been helped by this, or this has been beneficial, why don't you share it on social media? We love you, church. We look forward to seeing you this Gathering Sunday. See you soon.